Hello and welcome to Clamp, the weekly podcast where we talk about all things related to creating, living, and making projects. I'm your host, Grant Alexander, and joining me as always is Morley, Kurt, and Adam Mackey. Today, we're going to be talking about something that I got inspired by the guest host last week, Dave Bauer. His podcast is called like Making Problems to Solve or Solving Problems to Make. I can't remember exactly, and I know. I know. Sorry.
So disrespectful.
Sorry, Dave. Making Problems to Solve, I believe is what it's called. It was one of my Clampmendations. But what he talks about a lot, and he's had it on his blog on his website, is talking about like making a problem just to make one, and like delving into problems, not because you need to solve them, but because you're addicted to problem solving. And I was thinking about this the other day because a friend of my wife's has a brand new mobile dog grooming van. And the van came with a generator, and she got it built and everything, and costs good. It's a Mercedes Sprinter van. It's all kitted out to groom dogs. It came with a generator, and as soon as she would plug in the 30 amp plug that was all wired into a house panel and everything for the van, the generator would just go into automatic overload mode, as if something was like grounded out. So I tried to help her. I couldn't figure it out. I rewired the van to run off the 15 amp plug, and it worked just fine. And I was like, okay, that'll get you through. I went on to the cottage, and I was like, that probably won't be sufficient. There's a reason she needed the 30 amp, because she's got an air conditioner and a big dog dryer and a hot water tank and all these things that take up a lot of energy. So you need the bigger one. So she was doing that. It didn't really work for her. It worked in testing, but it wouldn't groom a dog. So I got back from the cottage, and I just couldn't stop thinking about what the hell is wrong with this thing. So I went over to her house, and I took every single wire off and trying to like isolate the problem. So I took all the breakers off. I took all the grounds off. I took all the neutrals off. I was like, something's going on here. I finally took off the main neutral, and it stopped overloading. I went, wow, okay. So that doesn't make any sense to me. Something must be like shorted out in the neutral. After calling my dad, who's obviously more experienced than I, we found out the plug on the actual generator was wired backwards. So if you're running a single appliance, they don't care which side's neutral and which side's hot. But when you're running a panel, it matters, right? Because the neutrals are grounded out. So we had to I took the whole generator apart and solved the problem. But it got me thinking, like, I spent countless hours. She had taken this to a Yamaha dealer generator. She took it to a Yamaha generator place. They couldn't figure it out. She took it to a van like conversion place. They were like, I don't know. It looks all good to me, right? Everyone who kept looking at it, they told her to buy it. Buy a new adapter, buy a new wire, buy XYZ. Like try all these different things. But nobody was like actually willing to try and solve the problem, except for me. I was not going to leave that house until this van worked. And in the end, obviously, she's now grooming because I fixed the problem. But it made me think, like, why did I do this? There was people who were getting paid who didn't bother doing it. And it's because I think I'm addicted to problem solving.
Interesting. I can kind of feel that. I can feel the addiction to problem solving is actually something we probably all go through, really. I mean, how many times are you making something and you're like, oh crap, how am I going to do this? And the next thing you know, you fixate on it for the next week.
Mm-hmm.
I think that obsession's there in everyone. Obviously, it's probably worse in some people than others. But I feel like I'm definitely up with you of trying to work stuff out and trying to fix it. It's funny that this all inspired from a van, because my wife and I are hopefully buying a caravan tomorrow, and it's like halfway gutted. It's a really run down. It's not even registered, and get to like build it out, get it back on the road and all that sort of stuff, like a project. And I just know that there's going to be so many problems along the way that I don't know how to fix. But I'm not the kind of person that's going to hire a professional. I'm going to spend months researching on how to fix it.
Yeah. So I found someone else who had this same problem on the internet in 2018 with this same generator. He was running it to run his off-grid house. And he said, I
Yeah.
bought a new generator because my old generator was like 5,000 hours. And I wanted to keep it as a backup and get a new generator. And every time I plugged it in, it overloads. And he had a video. And I was like, that's what's happening here. And in the end, what he did is he traded it. He sent it back and bought a new generator. Right? So
I was going to say, he probably never fixed it.
He never fixed it. So
yeah.
Anyways, I replied to that thread. I was like, hey guys, 2022 person here, in case someone else comes across this problem, here's what you got to do.
So it's funny. I actually don't relate to this like urge to spend a lot of time troubleshooting something. I don't think I have the patience for that sort of work. I would say that personally, I'm more addicted to progression. And that's one of the reasons why I've enjoyed skateboarding so much the last few months, especially going like really consistently and feeling the little improvements each day. And a lot of times how it's not always in the area that I expect, but no matter what, like some area of my skateboarding, some trick will get better. Like that feeling to me is like a dopamine rush. But the problem solving stuff, yeah, I don't know. I think it is an aspect of my personality that I would like to work on. So for an example, a company sent me a product and with the goal of having me use it in my YouTube videos. And I tried using it and it like catastrophically failed the first try. And I was not happy. I was expecting like to plug this in and it would work and it would just be easy, but it didn't. And like all of a sudden my mind is going through like cost benefit analysis. I'm like, I don't want to use this product. I don't want to suggest this to anyone who's watching my videos, let alone use it, because like, that's why I bought the Prusa. I wanted something that worked well and that I didn't have to tinker with. I don't want this device, that I have to troubleshoot. Like it's not a good product. So I'm ultimately not like, I want to send it back to them. They keep pushing back, but I'm like, I don't want this thing. Like take it back. And so, yeah, I think I would like to get more patient and become more comfortable doing some of those things. So one example is this bike restoration that I'm doing. This is very outside of my comfort zone because it's a lot of steps. It's a lot of things that take time, like rust removal, trying to figure out why something's sticking, and in a lot of mechanics that I haven't really done before. And I could go on YouTube and I could find a 30-minute YouTube video to show me how to do something. But like, yeah, it's the impatience once again. I'm like, oh, like this is so much time just to figure out how to do this one little thing. So I'm really taking my time on it, like chipping away a little at a time. Like this video might not be out for 6 months for all I know.
I would definitely wait till spring if you want it to pop off.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. Like maybe I'll accelerate it in like the next week. That's why I like just chipping away at it each day, because just by forcing myself to work on it, then you get those little moments of victory. Like yesterday, I successfully unstuck something that was stuck for a while, and it was good. It like felt really good. And then it's on to the next thing. Let's unstick that.
But that's what I think is the problem solving. But it's like, so my problem is like I'll come across something that I don't need to solve now, or that I doesn't even need a solution. It's currently working and it's been working, but all of a sudden I'm just like, I need to fix that. Right? Like that's where I have a problem. And I think that, like you were talking about progression, and I know you were into sports, and sports is a total progression thing. And I was never into sports because it does nothing for me. Right? Because there isn't like oh, it worked. It's oh, you slowly got better at this. Right? Or you didn't because you're not a very athletic person, or you didn't do it long enough for you to get that feeling or to see the progression. But I felt like, I don't know, I feel like there was like, I'm more interested in and I'm not even more interested in it. It's like I'm broken about finding problems and needing them to be solved immediately. Like I was out cleaning my garage and I have the person with the van bought a 30 amp, like 50-foot extension cord and cut the end off because they said try a new cord. So she did. Well, I was like, oh, I'll just rewire it so it's useful again. And the stupid thing was like all glued together. So I was like, I'll try and cut it apart. So why did I spend 30 minutes playing around with a cord that doesn't even need to ever be fixed? That's like, I could just buy a $5 part to fix it. Like, I don't know. Why did I do that? Why did I waste 30 minutes? Because I was like, I want to problem solve.
Feels like you have the mind of an engineer.
Yeah, but the engineering department at Carleton University disagreed.
I think a good kind of case in point for my style with this is when we would have downtime on the maintenance job when I was working in the Rockies. And there's always there's a job board with 10 different things to work on. So you could kind of choose what you wanted to be productive on because it all had to get done. And a lot of it was about equal priority. And one of the problems we had was this, I don't even know what to call it, like a fire pump. So basically, in case of a fire, we would put these pumps in the lake and hook up a fire hose, and they would spray water at a very, very high pressure. It was made by Wajax, so we'd call them the Wajax. And one of them was not working very well. Like the fuel air mixture was wrong. Something was going on. I think part of it might have been that I'm just not very comfortable with engines. But I had no interest in tinkering with that and try to figure out what was wrong. I was much more interested in going to paint that fence or strip the deck or work a little bit more on building this set of shelves. One, probably just because it was more within my comfort zone, but also I feel because I knew that I was going to make some progression and I would just end the day with it definitely a little more developed than I started.
And I would be the opposite. I'd be the guy tinkering on an engine. He has no clue how it works. But then at the end of the day, I would probably break something and go, well, hopefully I learned something and walk away from it. Right? But I would be totally okay with that, which I think is interesting compared to, I don't need to see the progression. I need to see, I've learned something new because I've taken something apart. Like a monotonous task, doing the same thing over. And that's, I think, part of why I'm feeling the editing videos isn't doing it for me anymore, is because a lot of editing videos is doing the same thing. And once you've done enough of them, I've done 70 or 80 videos or whatever, I've done enough clips and pushing stuff around, and I just feel like I need to find a new angle to make me interested again.
Yeah, I was just going to say, maybe that's a sign you need to drastically switch up how you're doing it. Because when I've done that recently, when I've changed techniques, that's when editing is super fun for me. Let me try this new subtitle technique. Let me add some sound effects and do other stuff. And then I'm having a ball. And it's funny, I think I need a certain amount of monotonous tasks in my day just to stay sane. I can't spend all day critical thinking. I need an hour of just doing something that doesn't require a lot of thought. And for me, clipping clips in my editing software is kind of that formula. I can just get it done pretty quickly, and then I can get on to the more interesting part of the editing.
Yeah. I find I have days where monotony is the only thing I can do. And I have days where I can't do anything. I can only do 10 minutes of work. It's going to be the most productive 10 minutes. I'm going to do a week's worth of work in 10 minutes. Right. And then it's going to be I'm burnt out. But then there's other days, I think there's with the monotony, it's I'll do it until I can figure out the best way and the fastest way to do it. And then I never want to do it again. I was installing the valve springs on a race engine. And it's a really it's finicky and tedious because there's a lot of them and it's really finicky work. But I got a rhythm going, and I did them. The first one took 15 minutes, and then they were getting super fast, and I did it, and then I was I want to do this again. So I took another head apart and I did it again. Right. And then I was at the end of it, I was I never have to do that. I think I've figured out the perfect way to do it. It was working like an assembly line. I was and now I never have to do it again. This is perfect. Right? It's why I couldn't become an engine builder, because they do the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, and I think then it kind of plays into incentives a bit. Like if you were being paid very well for rebuilding those engines, then it might change how you're doing it, like or your mindset around it.
Maybe I found that money doesn't motivate me no matter what. Like the amount of money just doesn't do anything for me. Like I already have everything I need and want. So like, oh yeah, could I have $1 million cottage?
I was
Sure,
just gonna
but like,
say the $1 million
yeah,
cottage.
but like I really don't feel like you would have to give me 1 million to make me want to do it. It would need to be an instant, like you get $1 million cottage and that's it.
In saying that, though, I mean, like, if you're getting paid to do it, it's then just your job. Like, you know, you go to work every day. Well, especially now, Grant. You know, you're getting paid to do the same job every day because
No,
it's
it's a
your job.
completely different job every day. That's why I like the
Really?
job. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I go to work and do pretty much the
Yes.
exact same job every day.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, you definitely do.
but I feel if your job was to build engines, if that's what was your work and what you got paid to do, I feel like that's different to not wanting to do it as a hobby all the time. You know, like that's just your job. That's what you're doing. Whereas opposed to what you're saying is that you wouldn't want to be like a hobbyist engine builder all the time because it's the same thing over and over.
I wouldn't want to be a hobbyist engine builder. I wouldn't want to be a full time engine builder. I think what I would like to do though is like completely one day. I've already rebuilt lots of engines, but like machine it myself. Do all like instead of sending it to somewhere to get machined, I want to have the tools. I want to machine it myself one day, one time, and then it'll be over. Then it'll be like I've done that. I never have to do it again. Like I don't know
Yeah.
what it is. I just don't. Once I've done it and I've figured out, like I've learned from it, maybe I'll do it one more time to go. Is there anything left here to learn? And then that would be the end of it. Whereas I know
Yeah.
there's people out there that can just do the like that enjoy. Like I couldn't like Austin from the High Caliber Craftsman, the hundreds of thousands of pens that he's made just makes me want to cry. That's all I could say. Like I just want to cry thinking about it.
It's funny you say that because now I'm thinking about it. I think the whole reason why like my business ideas and stuff that I've had haven't taken off is because I don't want to, even though I tell myself I do, when it comes down to it, I don't want to just make the same thing over and over to sell. I don't want to make dining tables to sell constantly. You know, I don't want to make cutting boards constantly to sell because it literally is the same process.
Adam, I think you might have hit your mute button while talking.
Oh, okay.
I definitely did.
Want to redo that sentence there?
Yeah. I don't know where I muted, but essentially all I was saying was, you know, I don't want to do the same thing over and over. And the reason why I've made my YouTube channel the way that I have is because I want to be able to do whatever I want, and I want to be able to make videos on whatever I want. I don't want people to come to my channel and expect every video to be a different style of cutting board or, you know, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing about doing custom work. So like for the pallet desk that I just made, it was actually a pretty big load off of me that I put out the reel that I was working on one and then asked someone to just contact me if they were interested in getting it made into a custom piece. And I'm thinking of doing that even earlier in the process, like just making some posts about being like, if you're interested in anything, any commission that could make an interesting YouTube video, send me a message. Or like, I found this random thing, send me a message if you want it made into something. Because that's where really interesting projects.
Well, that's where I think like Jimmy DiResta, that's some of his best videos are client videos, like custom random things he's made for people because they're so one-off bits that you're just like only 4 or 5 people would ever want that in the world, like a giant styrofoam cup. But someone wanted it, and it's really cool to see someone make it.
Well, it's also very relatable for like garage woodworkers or like any amateur, right? Because if you are an amateur woodworker, you're probably not going to make like a very standard dining table for someone because people could just go out and buy that. You'll make very custom or unique things for people because you want to have a unique spin on it, something that's handmade. You're not like the perfect craftsman, but you do have a unique style.
Yeah, for sure.
I think when we talked about doing this episode in the Discord, I'd mentioned, being addicted to it. But the other thing that came about when I was thinking about it is like, is it some form of ADD? Because I was like, is it that I get like hyper fixated on something that isn't the thing I need to do? Is this some sort of procrastination technique I'm using? Is it like, am I having some sort of problem? And it reminds me of like a Malcolm in the Middle episode where the father is going to change a light bulb and then through a series of different things ends up taking the engine out of his car. Right. And it's like,
What?
exactly. You got to watch the little clip. Maybe I'll find it and we can include it in the show notes if Morley reminds me. But it's really funny because he goes to like change a light bulb because it burns out, and then as he's like getting up to change the light bulb, like a ladder breaks or something, and then that brings him out to the garage where he needs to go to the store, and I don't know. It's a really funny escalation of events that like starts with something so simple, and I go, that is so relatable to me because that's how I think. um, and it's all like little problems that needed to be solved. And I think Morley was saying in the last episode, like, if you have something that takes 3 to 5 minutes, you should just do it now, right? It's your little philosophy there. And I think I might act on that too much and not realize how long things actually take.
Well, yeah. So number one, I know the clip. It's great. I'll include it in the show notes. I think if something takes 3 to 5 minutes, do it now thing for me works best if I set aside time for all of those small 5-minute tasks and not try to split up longer things with those small things. Like if I'm starting to feel a lag in productivity of like working on a bigger project, I'll maybe switch to like doing a bunch of like emails or something like that, or like sending out a bunch of like Patreon keychains. But yeah, I try not to just sprinkle those throughout the day because then it doesn't really feel like I'm making the bigger progress that's more important in some ways, or just requires more focus. But on the note, like on the ADD note, I mean, one, it sounds like the sorts of things you're doing require intense focus, like the rewiring of the generator. So it doesn't sound exactly ADD for me, but I think it's also important to not like judge yourself too hard for those idiosyncrasies about yourself. Because I think that might just be how you get stuff done. Like that might be how you're productive. So like for me, for example, I've judged myself from time to time being like, like, should I really be going skateboarding today? Like, am I really just procrastinating from doing this other stuff, which I should be doing? And then I'll eventually come to like, no, like I really enjoy skateboarding. It keeps me healthy. I get a lot out of it. Like this is something that's important to me. So it's okay for me to be doing this.
Oh, totally. And I don't judge myself on it because I totally know that's how I get stuff done. I do every once in a while give myself a little bit of guilt about starting something and not finishing it because I've been like called away, for lack of a better thing, into a problem that didn't need to be solved, right? Like I'll go and start trying to do something and it's just like, oh, this is kind of monotonous and I don't really, and it's like, oh, all of a sudden I do. Oh, why haven't I fixed that, furnace filter problem? Well, I'll go do it, right? Like I'll go do that right now. It'll only take 5 minutes and then it leads to 17 other things. And I forget the first thing I was supposed to be doing. And
It's funny because you just really said what I was going to say before, is that I feel like it's less of ADD and more of distracting yourself. Because that's what it feels like for me. So, for instance, like I'll go in the shop and be like, all right, I just need to get this one thing done. Next thing I know, I'm cleaning the shop. Not something that I needed to do at that time, but a problem that I made myself find so that I could distract myself from doing the actual thing that I'm supposed to be doing. And when you just said that then is that, you're doing a monotonous task and the next thing you know, you're cleaning out an air filter. It feels like you're distracting yourself from having to do that monotonous task.
yeah. And I'll say like ADD often gets like, hey, squirrel. Like that's how many people think about it. But that's like ADHD. You can have hyper focus too. So like the
Exactly,
people
yeah.
who like you can have both sides of that spectrum. So it's not, you can get down into the like like spend 8 hours not eating, not standing, not go to the bathroom, doing something that you, for some reason, has some, YouTube rabbit hole got you on, and now you've read, you've done enough research, you could do a dissertation on something. For some reason, you have no clue why you did it, but you couldn't read a history book in high school to save your life. But, there's that. Anyways, I just wanted to put it out there. I do think sometimes I'm just distracting myself from the things I don't want to do, but I don't know.
I mean, a lot of it comes down to why. So, like you're saying, like things you feel like you should do, and if those are projects, then I think a question we need to ask ourselves is like, why do I feel like I should do that project? So, listeners might remember about a year ago. I have no idea how long ago it is. It was somewhere between 6 months and 2 years ago. I said that I was going to make a backpack, and I have made zero progress on that. But I'm very okay with it because at this point, there's not really any good reason for me to make a backpack. So I'm okay. Just
promised.
That's not a good reason. I'm okay breaking that promise.
You guys heard it here first. Morley has broken the promise. I'll delete the reminders in my calendar.
Wasn't this meant to be like the same thing as Grant with his play gym, that you were both meant to get it done?
100%. And if I can figure out a way to make a great YouTube video out of it, then maybe I'll do it. But at this moment in time, that's not how I really want to spend my energy, because it's inherently going to take energy away from working on other projects. And so, but I'm okay with that. Like that's 100% fine. And I think so like one example is like this bike restoration, right? So I was considering, when I was really just not feeling great about it, like maybe I should just put it back on Facebook Marketplace and give it to someone else. But it didn't feel quite right. Like, like this is something that I think could be really cool. So instead of doing that, I've kind of just decided, well, I'll just keep chipping away at it because it has some potential, and I am into these vintage bikes.
I think it's really funny that you were just like, I could be okay with not doing this right now. And yet you give me such a hard time on the Discord about not having time or space to build a canoe.
The reason I said that was because when we talked about it on the podcast, you speak about building a canoe like it's this really cool thing. And I was trying to say to you that, in my opinion, it seems like you could, if you wanted to, build a canoe right now.
You could, if you wanted to, build a backpack right now.
You're right, and I don't want to.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I'm just like, right now I don't have the time or space or energy to dedicate it to you. And you're like, well, you could if you wanted to. And I'm like, I'm telling you, I don't have the time, space, or energy for it. And that's the same thing as saying I don't want to do it right now.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Why put it in that other, why frame it in that other way? Why not just say I don't want to do it?
Because I do want to do it. If I had the time, space, and energy, I would be doing it.
But if you don't have those resources right now, then that sort of just means that you don't want to do it right now.
No, I want to do it right now, but I don't have the time, space, and energy. I think there's this like a small difference between I don't want to do it and I don't have the time, space, or energy to do it right now because of other priorities in my life. I think it's like maybe this could be a whole topic for an episode one day, but it's kind of like the things in your life that you need to prioritize might affect what you can do no matter what you want. Right? Like I put my car up for sale, not because I want to sell it, but because I don't use it and it takes up space in my driveway. But if it doesn't sell, I'm okay with it too. Like,
I guess I kind of see those two sides as the same thing for me. So one example I can give is I really want to build like a skate park eventually, or at least just like a mini ramp. But I don't want to do it right now. And the feeling that I get when I think about that is I just don't want to do that, period. Doesn't mean that I don't want to do it in the future. But when I think about the act of doing that right now, like in the garage with no space, I have no idea where I would put it. I would have to move it when we move in like a month and a half. The feeling that I get is not wanting to do it. So those not having the time and resources and money to me is kind of the same as not wanting to do something.
Right. I guess I have this, like, I would love to do that if my kids were in college, if my, if I had, like, if I was at a different point of my life, then I would be doing it right now. But with the kids and work, and if I was retired, then I would do it, right? Like, so that's where I think, like, it's a little bit different.
I still think you should find a way to turn the tire into a tire swing.
Well, I'm not going to do that. That's from the pre-show for any of those wondering. So, anything else you guys want to talk about addicted to problem solving? Is it a bad thing to be addicted to problem solving?
I think it is if it takes over your life, but I don't think it's bad to be addicted to it. But I mean, if you don't get anything done that you need to get done because you're too busy problem solving, then that's where the issue is.
I think it's a good thing overall. Like when I think about people who I know who are addicted to problem solving, they're helpful people. They're people who you bring something to and they can fix it, and maybe they'll show you how to fix it as well because they love the process so much.
I think Adam's got it right. I think Dave was mentioning on one of his things that, like, he got in like small t trouble with his employer because he was spending too much time solving problems that weren't in his, like, as a contractor, you have a terms of reference. That's what you need to do. And he kept solving things that weren't on his terms of reference. And they kind of said, hey, how about you do the things we're paying you for? So as long as it doesn't get in the way of actually solving your, the things you need to do that are on your actual priority list, I think you're right. But do you know what problems we don't need to solve?
Money.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we would like some more, but I want to thank our Patreon supporters, especially the F-Clamp level, Brent Jarvis from Clean Cut Woodworking, Vincent Ferrari from Handmade by Vincent Ferrari, because We Make podcast is no more. This was last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago. I can't remember exactly when the last episode came out. It was ended, so if you guys want a great podcast to listen to that is ended so that you don't feel like you have to keep up every week, go listen to the back catalog of Because We Make. And if you just want to get some fancy wedding stuff, that seems to be where Vincent Ferrari is putting all his energy right now. So go check it out. I'd also like to thank Austin from the High Caliber Craftsman, Scott Oram from Dad It Yourself DIY, and Joe Herdina. If you want to listen to the pre-show, after show, and get a fancy keychain made by Morley, go to patreon.com/clamp. We really appreciate it if you could support us there. If you can't support us monetarily, we appreciate you just listening or sharing the show or reading a review, and we do have one of those that Morley's going to read later. Until then, Clampmendations.
Clampmendations.
My Clampmendation this week is going to be another podcast, the Makeshift podcast, not make shit, makeshift with an F. It is put on by Chris from Full Steam Designs and Corey from Odyssey Stan. And on the last episode, Austin from the High Caliber Craftsman was on there. So if you want to actually hear him talk, you go listen to that podcast because he doesn't talk on his own. But yeah, Makeshift podcast. Go check it out.
Nice. I'm hoping this isn't a repeat, and I'm pretty sure it's not. But my recommendation for this week is going to be a YouTube channel called Elanip, ELANIP. It's a gaming channel. He does primarily like GTA 5 RP role playing videos, but they're different. They're not like a normal, just like we're trying to like live like what life would really be like. He'll get like a car and put a rocket on it and then just piss off the police with it and stuff. And yeah, it's funny. I'm not sure if he owns the server, but he definitely runs it in some sense. So he's got like admin privileges and all that sort of stuff. But
he really needs to shout out. He's only got 2.49 million subscribers. Can we get him up to 2.5, please?
Yeah.
I'm going to shout out another deep cut that I'm sure no one has ever heard of. Tenet. I finally watched it. it's only won probably like at least one Oscar. But yeah, the Christopher Nolan movie, it was really, really good, as everyone said it would be. The fight scenes are like, that was the first thing I noticed when we were watching it. Like the first thing I was like, oh, this is a sweet movie. Just very well done fight scenes with great sound design, but also just like the plot as a whole. It kind of reminded me of like James Bond, but with a big twist that I do not want to reveal. But it's a really cool like thriller action adventure movie. And it's about 2.5 hours. We started it pretty late and I was not expecting on finishing it. And we ended up just watching it all the way through. Have you guys seen it?
I have not.
It was one of those movies that came out like right when movie theaters were starting to open back up during COVID. So I feel like a lot of people didn't see it because a lot of people weren't going to movie theaters yet. But it is now on Netflix. That's where I watched it.
Ah, in Canada.
Yes.
May not be around the world.
Yeah.
Cool.
It is with
That's
certain
what VPNs are for.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I told them the country they can look for.
Okay, so honest question. You know, like I think Adam has like given this vibe before, but people sometimes like talk about VPNs like it's some illegal thing. I mean, these are legit businesses that you pay a subscription for. Like, do we have to tread on eggshells when we talk about Express VPN or anything?
So you know what's interesting? You say that if you watch someone that say sponsored by NordVPN or something, they literally say in the ad read that they use it to connect to a different country to watch Netflix.
Yeah.
You know, like they say that. So that to me makes me think, because like ad reads are obviously approved by the ad, like by NordVPN or whatever. That to me tells me that it's not an illegal thing to do.
I've never heard them say that in an ad read.
I've heard it in so many ad reads. Yeah. But usually they'll kind of preference it with like, oh, I was in America and I wanted to watch something on TV in Australia, so I connected to Australia VPN or something like that. But there have been some that are just like, I literally just connected to another country so I could watch it.
Well, I think it's technically against the thing you're paying for, they can then cancel you and ban you.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Then you have to get someone else to sign up, and then you have to share their password or something.
It's like counting cards. It's not illegal. It's just frowned upon.
I actually think it's against the terms of service. So
yeah, it probably. That's the thing, though. It's probably against the terms of service of that company, but I don't know if it's actually illegal. As in, like, you can't get in trouble from the government, but I think that the like Netflix would have in their terms and conditions, you can't use a VPN.
Right. Yeah. Well, you can't use a VPN to mask your country of origin.
Yeah.
Because there's other reasons to use a VPN. So that the honest question is, it is probably against the Netflix terms of reference. If you're listening to this and you actually know the answer, hit us up on Instagram.
Yeah, definitely.
On that note, it's time for Morley to read the review. And I tried to find, I don't know where this person's from, somewhere in the United States of America. So I'd like you to do a generic, like overdubbed United States of America, as if it's coming from someone who doesn't know what the United States of America sounds like.
Got it. All right, here we go.
Sound like George W. Bush.
These guys interact really well. I feel like we're all hanging out at a maker meetup, sharing stories and a brew. Their unique backgrounds and experiences make for great, engaging conversation. That's a 5-star review from Wood Art Guy on Apple Podcasts from somewhere in the USA.
Thank you. That was perfect. That sounded exactly like the overdubbed Squid Game's American people. Well, I want to thank TF Turning for the new theme song. It's exciting. We're going to get another new one as soon as he listens to an episode. I want to thank everyone for listening. You can find us all on the Clampstagram or on the ClampTube, or that's what we should have got our custom URL. Should have been ClampTube.
ClampTube.
It's on youtube.com/clampcast. Until next time, you can catch us in the after show.
Bye.